If you're an intermediate drummer who's feeling stuck and discouraged playing basic grooves and fills because you can't get all four limbs precise enough to play independent of one another, then this lesson is for you. Practice these super simple exercise patterns so that you're well on your way to playing more complex songs and complex linear drum grooves and even Bonham triplets. You can do this. Hey, welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so glad you're hanging out with me today. I help beginner and intermediate drummers become the musicians that others actually want to play with and have in their bands. And we do this by teaching you the core skills, the non-glamorous skills that get you results faster. How would you like to be able to play whatever you hear in your head? How would you like to be able to translate ideas, musical ideas, and grooves and fills that you hear onto the kit flawlessly? Well, in order to do that, you need coordination. You need independence between your limbs. And I've got a great way for you to accomplish this. 30 days to four-way rock coordination. This is my free PDF e-guide that just lays out for you step by step every day, one new groove to work on. You learn one new groove, one new pattern every day, building four-way coordination along the way. Whether this takes you 30 days or 90 days, that's not the point. The point is step by step. You know exactly what to work on next. You can see your progress as you go, and you'll have so much fun practicing these that you'll forget you're even building coordination. That's the best part about this. And so you'll be able to much more easily play the ideas in your head and learn songs more quickly because you feel more relaxed and at home behind the kit. This is awesome. This is what I want for you, and this is probably what you want too if you're really wanting to become a master of your instrument. So go grab it. My free gift to you, 30 days to four-way rock coordination for the beginner drummer, in the description below. On with today's lesson. Linear drumming is always considered to be one of those things that's just really hard to do, and it's like the pinnacle of drumming accomplishment, to be able to play something linear and fast really well. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's hard to play certain linear patterns. It's hard to play them cleanly. It's hard to get them precise, meaning that it just takes a lot of practice. It's the ultimate test of your coordination. It takes some time to get there. But don't let that deter you. Don't let that discourage you, because getting started is not difficult. And that's why I love three-step lessons. I love three-step plans. We're going to break this down and make this nice and digestible today. If you're an intermediate drummer, this is most definitely for you, because this is going to meet you where you're at, where you're wanting to get more advanced in the types of patterns you're able to play. But the thing is, even if you're a beginner tuning in with us today, this first step is going to work perfectly for you. And if you're a more advanced player, don't scoff at this step, because this is still an essential thing that we all need to practice. So step number one, the linear exercise that even a total beginner can play. A lot of times the biggest problem, this is something I hear whenever I send out a survey to my email list. If you're on my email list, you've gotten these before. I'll ask you, what is the biggest challenge you're facing right now? What are you working on? Because I need to know what kind of lessons to make. That's how I know what content to create for you. And one of the biggest challenges that I hear over and over again is I just can't get my right foot to separate from my right hand. It's amazing how common that struggle is. And I remember, I've been there when I first started playing. It was hard to get those separated because your right hand wants to follow your right foot. I've watched students play where literally their right hand is keeping time, and they switch up the kick drum pattern and their right hand just goes with it and they don't even notice it. Or they're trying to switch up a kick drum pattern, but the right foot just has to stick to eighth notes or quarter notes because that's what the right hand's playing. So I totally get it. I get the struggle. That is frustrating, because it's something about splitting the two things that are controlled by the same side of your brain that's just difficult. So the first thing we got to do here, in order to play anything linear, we have to make sure we've split these two things apart, because this is probably the biggest challenge right off the bat. So if we can solve this, if you can overcome this and get your right foot split from your right hand, you're going to be in great shape and motivated to move through these next steps and really get to some serious linear playing eventually. So what are we doing here? What is this that's so simple that even a total beginner can do it? Just singles back and forth between each limb. So super fundamentally, that's a linear pattern, right? Because we're just playing singles. By the way, the definition of linear, I should have said this first. I'm assuming that you have an idea what it is because you saw the title and you clicked on this. But if you don't really understand what linear drumming is, it just means that's where we don't have two notes happening at once. There are never two limbs playing together. It's always one thing at a time. And so it would be a pattern like, that right there would be linear, where it's always one thing at a time. And so the kick gets thrown in there, but whenever the kick happens, there's no hand going on. And so it's this whole back and forth that's tough to play cleanly. So even singles like that, even singles back and forth, that counts as linear. We think of it more as a linear pattern when we're mixing in the feet. So really where we want to go with this and where we want to focus our attention is right hand and right foot singles. If you've never done that before, then that alone might be challenging, as simple as it is, but that's okay. There's no shame in practicing these super simple things because generally the simpler things yield the biggest results. There's power in simplicity. So practice the simple singles like that, back and forth between right hand and right foot, and then do this between the other limb combinations too, left hand and left foot. Right hand, left foot. Left hand, right foot. And then the feet. And then the first thing we did, the hands, just playing singles. So those are our combinations. I think that was 6 different things, if you're keeping count. And so those are the combinations that we want to be doing here. So let's do this along with the metronome. I'm going to demonstrate these different combinations for you. You can play along with me. We're going to do 80 beats a minute with our metronome, playing 8th notes. So that'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now you can mix these up a little bit and you can change the order, right? Like you could do right hand followed by right foot, boom, 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 boom. Or you could flip it around and start with the right foot. Either way it's gonna work. You're gonna receive all the benefits of doing this, whichever way you do it. When I was switching to the other combinations, I ended up doing like kick first and then snare. You could also do snare, kick, snare, kick. The idea is don't get hung up on those details. Practice them either way or both ways. And just do those different limb combinations. As many of the combinations as there are, practice doing those as singles slowly back and forth. Now, as a bonus, I'll throw this out there. If you're familiar with the method book, 4-Way Coordination, this is an old classic method. I'll put a link to it below if you want to go check it out. That method book is built around patterns like this. The first few pages are basically singles between limbs, where the first exercise might be something like, it's very much a reading challenge because you're having to read the notes on the page. You've got your 4 lines, you're figuring out what is what. So if you're familiar with that method, this is definitely very familiar. And as a bonus here, you can start mixing this up and create your own patterns and say like, okay, I'm gonna do right hand and then go to right foot and then right hand, left foot. So you could do that. You could go. Does that make sense? So you're just doing those 3 places you can go from here. Then you could go to kick drum and say, what are 3 places I can go from the kick? And then what are 3 places from the snare? All the while you're feeling the beat right there from the snare in a way. 1, 2, so you're just feeling that steadily, but you're going to the 3 other destinations from here. And then lastly, the left foot. So now getting into step 2, take your beginner linear playing to the next level to build some chops. This is where it gets a little more interesting, because the thing is, if all you ever practice are singles, even if you start getting those pretty fast, you'll be limited with what kinds of intricate linear patterns you can play. So we've got to start shaking up our stickings a little bit and now add doubles. So this definitely adds a layer of challenge, but we're keeping it slow. Don't worry about going fast. We're going to build off of what we've just done. So we're going to take those same limb combinations and now we're going to play doubles. So all that means is, as well as, and. So all those same different combinations, and then of course we can mix them up like we did with the singles, where we could do. like that, and gradually get better at just randomly going back and forth, where we can fluidly be like right here, okay, now let's go to here, now let's go to here. That's the skill required for linear playing, is immediately being able to command each limb, and this really helps you with doing that. This will so much push your coordination, but go really slow first. So let's turn our metronome on. Here's what we're going to do to keep it super simple. We're going to keep our same tempo of 80 beats a minute, playing eighth notes. We're not going to 16ths just because we've gone to doubles. We're still going to play these as eighth notes. So that means these different combinations might look like this. Now, the cool thing about getting into doubles is we can mix the stickings up in different ways. We can mix them up in, in terms of doing like, there's that kind of way of mixing it up, but also instead of going, right, right, foot, foot, left, 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 something like that, we can go. And then do that same thing with the feet, where we could actually go right, left, if that makes sense. So that gives you a lot of possibilities. You can go, or switch to right, left. Do that with left foot too. Or do the right, left also with the feet. Then get crazy and do left hand lead. And then start mixing it up. You can do all sorts of crazy things here. So that's your bonus step. Depending on where you're at, if you are a total beginner getting into this, don't rush into that. But if you're a more intermediate to advanced player and you're trying to get from pretty good, solid coordination into full command over your limbs and ability to play linear stuff, that might be a cool place to go with this, practicing that bonus layer, that bonus challenge of changing up the sticking. So we're essentially doing, the doubles are happening between hands and feet, or you could think of it as drums and hi-hat and bass drum, if that makes sense. So we could call this half of the double and that the other half. I think at that point it's fairly self-explanatory. So it's not true doubles. It's not true, we're not playing a double stroke roll, but you could think of that as a doubles pattern back and forth between hands and feet. So now our third and final step, what we want to do is test our independence. We want to mix everything together, mix all the singles and the doubles together to test our independence and see where we're at so far. So thinking about this logically, singles, doubles, what's the next pattern? What's the next rudiment we want to get into in our progression of simple essential rudiments? So let's do some paradiddles, because paradiddles mix singles with doubles. Think about it. Right, left, single, right, right, double. And so they're that perfect marriage of both of them, and you end up practicing things both hands leading. So paradiddles are a great way to really work this. So at this point, we've got some options for how we can play these. We can actually just straight up play a paradiddle between right hand and right foot. But then there's also the option to do like we did with the doubles and do. And anytime that double comes up, we could play that as a right-left. And so we can do these, straight paradiddles between different limbs. But we also have the option to go. Because what I want you to do is get really creative with this. And we're going to talk a little more about that in a bonus point. As soon as we finish with this one, we're going to talk about a bonus thing here that's going to help you go even further with this. But we've got to start mixing these together. We've got to practice the paradiddles to really mix the singles with the doubles to get creative and play whatever we want to play. Because you can play really cool fills like... when you start incorporating paradiddles into your linear patterns. It's pretty cool what you can just suddenly start coming up with like that. When you can mix the doubles with the singles. So that's why we want to get into paradiddles. So first, keeping this super simple with the metronome at that same 80 beats per minute tempo, let's just do eighth note paradiddles between each limb, and then from there you can get creative and start changing the stickings and start going a little bit faster. And as quickly as you're able, start increasing those tempos. And then focus maybe just on kick and snare, doing that different sticking going. And then starting on the kick. And then once you're getting this together, once you're practicing these patterns consistently, you're getting them solid, then you can start getting crazy with this, because here's the thing. There's a place where drummers tend to get stuck, and really it's about right here. Eventually, you learn the singles patterns, you learn the doubles patterns, you're working the paradiddles, but if that's as far as you go with this, you're going to get stuck. And this is where so many drummers get stuck. There's a gap between exercises and application. And in this case, the gap is, we could call it like the improvisation gap, the getting creative gap. What you have to do is intentionally take an exercise and see, okay, how can I improvise on this? How can I adjust it? How can I make it my own? How can I come up with my own version of this? How can I get creative with this? When you can get into that headspace, that mindset, and start practicing these that way, that's when you don't get stuck. And that's when you get to where you can really creatively do these and come up with any fill you want to, like, and just do random stuff like that that's really cool. Because otherwise, if you're always just practicing these exercises, you're going to just be stuck on these exercises. You're going to be like, okay, let me see if I can build a fill out of paradiddles. And you'll be trying to figure out, like, wait, how do I get from, oh, okay. You have to take some creative license with this. Once you've used these exercises to build up a coordination ability, you then have to sit here and figure out, all right, what are some random things I can play? How can I get creative with this? And if you're having trouble, just go really slow. Improvise really, really slow. There's no shame in doing that. I know it doesn't seem as fun or doesn't sound as cool, but sit here and just practice going. I know I technically cheated and I played 2 notes at once there, but it was a flam. And hey, that's the thing. When you're getting creative like this, there's no rules. You can cheat and you can throw in other bits and pieces like that, or like throw in a crash whenever you want to. Practice improvising really slowly, and the more you do that, make yourself do it every day. Challenge yourself to do it every day, and then it's going to start to become second nature. It's going to start to feel natural, and it's going to start to become a thing you can actually just sit there and do. And you can start to go into randomness from there and gradually get faster. You will get there. You will be able to do this. You just have to have that mindset of, I'm going to take this and run with it. One creative tip before we wrap up. So when you're trying to get creative with this, a fun thing to play are Bonham triplets. And that's why I mentioned earlier, this will help you do that. This will help you play Bonham triplets. Just sit there and practice going kick, tom, tom, kick, tom, tom. As simple as that. Really slow over and over again. And the more you get those threes down, it's really cool what you can do with these. Especially, I like starting with the right hand. So instead of going kick, left, right, I like to go right, kick, left, right, kick, left. It sounds really random and crazy, but it's just that same sticking over and over again. And so if you feel like you're getting stuck on this, and you feel like I'm not able to be as creative as I want to, this is too slow, I'm not getting where I want to go, then just strip it down. Super simple, and just do those threes. Just doing the because when you start orchestrating it around the kit, that's where it gets random and crazy. You could stay on the toms. And that's cool and that's fun, but it's even cooler when you start mixing it up. The sticking stays the same. We're just moving to different surfaces. That's great ear practice, like ear coordination practice, where your ear's hearing different things, but your limbs are still playing the same rhythm and the same sticking, which is a fun challenge. So if you feel stuck on the creative side of this, start with that. Just doing a simple sticking pattern like that, but changing up the orchestration. And I definitely recommend doing it with Bonham triplets, because at this point, you're able to do that because you've worked the singles and the doubles and the paradiddles. So have fun with this. This is going to help you go from limbs being stuck together and unable to play independently, where you feel like you're trapped in a groove box and you're only able to play certain things, to having the freedom for each foot and each hand to play on its own and play whatever it wants to play. So you can play more of what you hear in your head and have more full command over each limb. And that means a world of difference in your playing. That's going to help in so many things we don't even have time to talk about today. It's going to help you sound more professional and feel more at ease and relaxed behind the kit. Tons of benefits from working on this. So take action, practice this. You can do it. Question for you as we go. Do you have a favorite linear feeling groove or fill you want to learn? Name the song. Tell me in the comments. You can think of a song right now that has a weird kind of groove that you're like, you know, I think that's linear. Or a really cool fill that kind of mixes up some drums and like the kick, where it's a mix between hands and kick, and it has a linear feel. Tell me in the comments, what comes to mind? What is a linear groove or fill that comes to mind that's maybe in a favorite song? Name that song, tell me what it is you're practicing and what you want to work on here. Because now you've got the resources, you've got the tools. Hope this really helps you get there so that you can nail that groove or that fill in that song. I'll tell you mine. So the first one that comes to mind for me, so I grew up playing in church. I've been playing pretty much every Sunday for 14 years now. And a song that we played a whole bunch years ago, I think this came out almost 10 years ago, Phil Wickham, This Is Amazing Grace. And his recording of this song, it kind of had this electronic, like EDM feel in true 2013 fashion. But going into a verse, it had this groove that was kind of like this. It was that sort of thing. So pretty much linear, occasionally two things happening at once, but a very linear pattern. That has always been the song for me that comes to mind with like a linear feel. It was challenging to learn for sure. So if you play in church, maybe that's yours. Another one, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, Paul Simon, Steve Gadd on drums, where it's basically like a breaking down that groove is definitely a topic for another lesson, but it's a very linear sort of thing in a way. Not all of it's necessarily linear, but it's a lot of that back and forth, incorporating the left foot. And so that's another example. So whatever song comes to mind where you're like, that's a weird drum part, it feels linear, tell me what it is. As always, know that you can do this, you can accomplish this. Go take action, head to the practice room. Stay non-glamorous. Thanks for watching today. I will see you on the next lesson.